Hello Bookcheer, this is Emma from Emma's Bookish Lifestyle, and today is a slightly different video. This is going to be a book to movie adaptation discussion, and I've not done one of these before, but I'm actually really looking forward to this one, and I am somewhat compelled. This is the book to film adaptation of Ernest Cline's Ready Player One. Now, there's been a lot of discussion I've seen on the internet about it. I wanted to be one of those conscientious people that actually gave the book a fair crack of the whip before I went to see the film. And this video is going to have some spoilers with it. So I am going to preface this with an apology to those of you who have either not had the opportunity as yet to read the book, or have not had the opportunity as yet to go and see the film, or both, that there will be spoilers from both aspects. So if you want to watch this, I would really love you to watch this once you've had the opportunity to either read the book or watch the film. But I don't want to spoil anything for you, so that's my little preface. So I'm just going to move forward from now, and as I say, there may well be spoilers, so please don't watch if you don't like to be spoiled. So the first thing is Ready Player One. Usually when they do the book to movie adaptation, we all hate it, don't we? They put a film affiliated cover on it. Now this is the original cover, and I intentionally bought it the minute I knew that they were going to make this into a film, because I did not want the movie affiliated cover. Respect to Ernest Cline and the people who have made the film. The book cover really hasn't changed that much, and the only main difference is sort of this is more less drawn and more realistic from obviously the set of the film, and the character here of Wade or Parzival is actually the actor himself. Now, it looks pretty much identical, to be honest with you. The only difference I would say is obviously the build of the main character, Wade, and I'm going to go into that now. So I'm going to break it into a few sections, and I promise I'm going to try and cut out as many so's as I possibly can, because I just realised I went so about 2 or 3 times. So let me get a quick sip of my drink, and I'm drinking zero fizzy beverage in peach flavour. And start with the characters. So, as we all apologies, there you go. So, I wish I had a water gun so you could all spray it at me if I said so too many times. Anyway, the book is based very strongly in the future. It's based in, I believe it's 2045 it starts. Let me just double check. Yes, I believe it is 2045. And it starts off with a character called Wade Watts, and he's describing the futuristic world, so what the world is like in 2045, where he's living, what has happened to cause the world to be in the state of disrepair that it is currently in. He is living in an area called the Stacks, which basically is described and portrayed both in the book and in the film as sort of static caravans, as we call them in the UK, that stack on top of each other and have ladders that sort of go up, and they go up quite a few feet in the air, shall we say. They're almost like tower blocks, but just made of various different static caravans, vehicles that have run out of fuel that have been used, and are kind of being resided in by quite a few people. So one static caravan area could have 3 or 4 families in. So a bit of a slum of the modern era, but yet they have electrical power, and they are connecting up to areas within a software called the Oasis. Now, the Oasis has been created by a character called James Halliday, and I have to say, in the book, he was very much portrayed as a computer geek, a computer nerd, a board game nerd, Dungeons and Dragons nerd, and I really, really liked the way he was portrayed in the book, and how growing this immense company affected his personality and his character. In the film, he's not as detailedly, that's not very well worded description. He was not well described in the film as he was in the book. Part of that is because a large chunk of the book has had to be kind of whittled away to enable the film to be done in one sitting as a 2-hour film. And partially, I think, because the main focus is actually drawn away somewhat from him and his relationship with Og Morrow, who is his partner and best friend in the film and in the book, until they fall out. And again, that kind of interaction got a little bit lost in the film, so unfortunately those two characters I didn't feel were portrayed as well as I would have liked them to be. There was a slight change in the Og Morrow character. He is involved quite heavily towards the end of the book, especially with the top 5, as they're called. The top 5, Parzival, Artemis, H, Shoto and Dago. But in the film, he's portrayed slightly differently. He's portrayed as a character within a sort of library resource who's helping them out and directing them. And he's actually the character that influences Parzival's enablement to have an extra life at the end of the film. And that is somewhat different to how it's obviously portrayed in the book. One thing I will say is that the book had obviously 2 stages to each gate, and there were 3 gates, and there was quite a lot of story and plot between each of the gates, which I thoroughly enjoyed and I really loved, and I really, really did enjoy the book. I think initially I might have even put it on my Goodreads as 4, but I think after everything and mulling it over, it's definitely a 5-star read for me, and I think I want to read Armada by Ernest Cline next, so I've added that onto my wish list. But obviously film constraints are somewhat different. Apologies, the boys are playing behind me. Films have somewhat more sort of constraints to them in that they... Sorry about that, I had to just separate the boys. Yes, so films have somewhat more constraints in that obviously the imagination that can be built up from a book is a lot more intense, I feel, and a lot more absorbing, and you don't always have that option with a film. You don't have the time, you don't have the resources to be able to put the full descriptive content of a book onto screen. So the film actually starts quite a chunk ahead of where the book sort of begins. It briefly flits over Wade's life. It does change his relationship with his auntie, which I'm not quite sure why they felt it was necessary to do that. I don't think it was appropriate or needed to make her someone that he actually had a relationship with, when in fact in the film he didn't. And it skipped quite a lot of his interaction and how he built his friendship with Ike. H. I read it as Ike when I was reading the book. I don't know if anybody else did. I think it was because the way it was spelt, obviously A-E-C-H, and it was never described in the book as being pronounced as H. So I did I'll confess, I did read it as Ike. So if I occasionally slip into Ike instead of H, I do apologise. But the friendship with H that he built up obviously isn't shown. Quite a few of the references, the 80s and 70s pop references that are made in the book are not included in the film. I am assuming some of those are because they are with different film company franchises who aren't prepared to sell the rights over to use them in the film. And some of them, I think, are possibly just because Ernest Cline had so many pop references and still has so many pop references that he's just replaced one or two here and there for ease. The one reference that I really did like that he referred to in the film that he doesn't refer to in the book is the clip from The Shining. Now, this is the access to the second key, which is the Jade key, and is very different to how it's portrayed in the book. Extremely different, I will tell you that now. But what I liked about it was the inference that basically when The Shining was converted from a book to a film, it was not approved of by Stephen King. He really didn't like the adaptation with Jack Nicholson in it. And not that he didn't like Jack Nicholson, but he just didn't like the film adaptation, end of. It wasn't how he'd visualised it, it wasn't how he had it in his book. And I don't think he was particularly party to the creation of it as a film. So I think part of the reason why Ernest Cline has put that in, and maybe has been overseen by some people who have reviewed it and said, oh, it's nothing like the book, is that that was his way of saying, I am a co-producer of this film, I have approved this film, and I am happy with how this film has come out. And some people aren't, but I am, and this is my sort of homage to my creation. As I say, a lot of the character build-up and the character friendship has been cut out. It jumps straight away to the fact that all 5 of the top 5 are sort of friends or aware of each other from the outset of the film. We jump straight into them going for the first key to the first gate. And I have to say, I really loved the fact that it turned into a racing game. And I really liked the homage to King Kong and Godzilla, both big things from my childhood. And I grew up with a brother who was into the sort of the racing games and that sort of thing, so I was always kind of party to that in my childhood. So I really loved that aspect of it, and I do understand the reason why they've changed some of the scenes from 2 stages to get to the gate than 1. It did make it flow quite quickly. The graphic content of Real World to Oasis was fantastic. I'm not quite sure why they changed Shoto's name to Sho. I don't really know why they had to do that. I actually really loved the fact that in the book, Dato and Shoto were obviously described and explained as being 2 ceremonial fighting weapons from Japan, and I don't see why that couldn't have been explained and included in the film. I also don't know why it couldn't have been explained and included in the film that they were sort of pseudo brothers in that world and that they had found each other. A lot of the backstory got lost, so you didn't really understand the characters' backstories, which is the only downside I think to the film. Is I would have liked to have known that Dato and Shoto were actually long-term friends and that they'd met through the Oasis. There was a character death in the book that didn't happen in the film, and again I couldn't really understand why. I suppose it could be because it was aimed at a 12A audience, and so they felt that maybe it would be upsetting or disturbing to somebody. of that age, but you know, I've seen other films, Harry Potter being one, where they killed off a very major character, and I don't think there was any dramatic trauma made to the child audience that was watching it. So I was a little bit frustrated with that. But overall, the impact of the film visually was very, very good. You know, obviously the 3 stages of the gates have changed. They aren't what you're going to expect. They are different to the book. But if you can keep them as separate entities, which is what I did. I mean, I actually, funnily enough, was talking to a friend before I went to see the film, and they said to me, "Oh, have you read the book first?" And I was like, "Yes, yeah, I've read the book first. I was really keen to read the book first." And they said, "Oh, well, you know, I've heard awful reviews. You should go and do some research. The reviews were awful. It's nothing like the book. You might have been better off just going to see the film and not reading the book first." And, you know, I sort of, as I explained to my other half, it was something that I was really looking forward to watching. I do tend to go in with a slightly open mind. I never compare and contrast, usually, books to films in a major way, because I like to appreciate them both for their own standoff qualities. One of the reasons why I did go in with an open mind was because I did understand, pardon me, that Ernest Cline had been involved in the production of the film. He was a co-producer. He had seen what had been made out of his book. It was my full understanding that he was happy with what had been pulled from the book by Spielberg to be made into the film. And I fully understand as well some of the licensing and repercussion issues that there may be with certain elements of it. They did make reference to Video Kills the Radio Star, and I was a bit heartbroken that that wasn't really included in the film. You know, don't reference it and then not use it. It was heartbreaking, you know, use it. Please use it. That's one of my childhood songs. However, I will say, and any John Hughes fan will know this, I absolutely loved the Wog Box scene in the Oasis, where they held up the Wog Box and played music out of it. It was a really good homage to Say Anything, and being a massive John Hughes fan, a massive 80s film fan, growing up in that era, having all those kind of sounds and everything come back, I could really link in with it, and I found it great fun. My partner also watched it with me. He's not a reader at all. He's an anti-reader. I wouldn't say he's an anti-reader, actually that's the wrong thing. He'd like to read, but he just doesn't have the attention span to read. He started a book about 3 months ago, and I think he's only read a chapter or 2. So, and it wasn't even this book. But he thoroughly, as a standalone viewer who had no anticipation or expectation, he thoroughly enjoyed the film. And, you know, I think as a purist reader, you could go in and pick the film to pieces. I completely understand where some of the reviews have come from, especially, as I say, if they are purists and they want to see the pure content of a wonderful book like Ready Player One on the screen. But I also have to say, I am a purist. I love the book. I think the book is amazing. But in this particular instance, there was something about the film that just was enjoyable to me, and I really liked it. So the book is a 5-star read. The film is I would say a 3.5, 4-star. Basically, actually, no, excuse my French, sod it. I'm going to go 4-star. I hate half points. Let's just make it a 4-star. Yes, it is very different to the book. Yes, it is a completely different beast. It's been transported into a different approach and a different element. Yes, it has been made into a more 80s buddy movie along the lines of The Goonies and things like that, the Breakfast Club, where it relates to a group of people as an entity rather than individuals. And yes, there are elements of the film that have been switched around. There are elements of the book that were done by Parzival or the character Wade that are now done by Artemis, and vice versa. But I think if you can swallow down your love of the book and appreciate the book for what it is, which is an amazing homage to 80s pop culture, and when I say pop culture, that means everything from TV, movies, films. In the UK, that's what we call a movie. So TV, movies, music, personalities, everything into the film version of it, the movie version of Ready Player One. If you can separate them and enjoy them as separate entities, I think you'll enjoy both. If you're a purist and you love the book and you don't want the book to be ruined, then I wouldn't recommend you watch this film. But as I say, it was a 5-star read and a 4-star film for me, and I did take it purely on its face value and not on a compare and contrast value. So I hope this helps, and I hope I haven't ruined it too much for you. I hope you'll go, if you haven't already, to see the film and appreciate the film in Ernest Cline's viewpoint. He has been involved in the film, so I don't think you can completely write it off, because I think he's probably as proud of the film as he is of the book, and I think he should be, because you know, there are some kids that possibly won't read a book of 376 pages with really teeny tiny font. That's probably not showing very well, but the original was in teeny tiny font. I don't know if the book, the film adaptation cover has got larger font on the inside to make it more accessible to younger readers. But, you know, I think it will appeal definitely to a younger audience. Anyway, that's just my humble 43-year-old 80s child opinion. Let me know what you think and give me your thoughts and comments down below. Please don't hate. It's just my own personal opinion. I appreciate that everybody has an opinion. There are opinions that I have seen that are not positive, and I do fully appreciate and respect those videos too. I look forward to speaking to you soon, and take care for now, BookTube. Bye.